Welcome, everyone, to the third annual and 10th anniversary OpenZFS Developer Summit. So this is the 10th, and it's almost exactly 10 years ago today that we open sourced ZFS in October 31st, 2005. And if you look carefully, there's an Easter egg hidden in one of the talks later today from that day. So keep your eyes peeled. I'm Matt Ahrens. I helped to create this OpenZFS project. I work at Delphix. I'm going to be giving you a keynote in two parts. The first part is metadata about this talk, and the second part is metadata about the OpenZFS project. So first order of business, we wanted to thank our very generous sponsors who made this conference possible. If you are from one of these companies, please stand up. So first, our bronze sponsor, OVH. Thank you. And our silver sponsors, Storient, Dado, Racktop, and the FreeBSD Foundation. Thank you guys very much. Our gold sponsors, IX Systems, Synedo, and Intel. Thank you. Our platinum sponsors, Delphix, High Availability, GitHub, OS Nexus, OmniTI, and Nexenta. Thank you very much. And last but not least, sponsoring at the platinum level, but rather than giving us platinum, they gave us beer, Cluster HQ. So we have a few special thanks to folks who have gone above and beyond. Nexenta has provided the hackathon prizes, which will be given out tomorrow to the Best in Show hackathon projects. And it is this BB-8 toy from the new Star Wars movies. Thank you, Nexenta. And thanks especially to Synedo. They designed and produced all of your badges. The badges are really cool. My favorite feature is that it has your name on both sides. So even if it twirls around, people can still tell who you are. It also has the schedule and a BART map on it. Very cool. Thank you, Synedo. OK, so because of our very generous sponsors this year, we have not only are able to put on the conference, but we're able to do a bunch of things that we weren't able to do in past years. So first and foremost, we have professional video and audio streaming and recording. So unlike past years, people on the stream, hopefully you can actually hear the audio, and there are no ads interrupting your viewing. This is live on OpenZFS.org right now. If you're on there live, there's like a little comment thing. You can chat with each other. You can also tweet at us, #OpenZFS, or go on IRC in the #OpenZFS channel. And all these recordings will be available later on YouTube. Also, extra special things that we do not have is there's going to be a special 10-year anniversary dessert tonight at the dinner on site here. And tomorrow at the hackathon, we are going to have a catered dinner that you do not have to pay for, contrary to past years and prior announcements for this year. So thank you very much to our sponsors. So we have a few individuals that we wanted to thank. First, Aaron Holding. So Aaron couldn't be here today, but he actually designed all of the T-shirts and all the branding for this event. And last year, we had the Golden Gate Bridge in the Z logo. Very cool. I see a few of you with those shirts on from last year. This year is my favorite piece of San Francisco infrastructure, which is Sutro Tower. You can see Sutro Tower from almost everywhere in the city. It's a radio and television tower. And it's 1,000 feet tall, and it's on top of a 1,000-foot hill, so it's higher than anything else in the city. It's also up there in the clouds, and I guess we have clouds in computers or something. So it's very relevant. Secondly, thanks very much to the Delphix PM team. Come on out here, guys. Anastasia, Karen, and Catherine. The Delphix PM team helped to organize this whole event. I basically made all the fun decisions, like who's going to give talks, what order will they be, those kinds of things. And my colleagues made this whole event happen, from getting the food here, getting the event, making sure everybody knew what was going on, communicating with all the speakers. So thank you very, very much. So our agenda today is an eye chart. So I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of like how to think about the different sections of it. So first, right now we're in the motivation section. So hopefully I will be soon motivating you on why you should care about OpenZFS. And then we have another talk from Tarkan about why OpenZFS matters. Then we're going to get into implementation overview. So this is something that a bunch of people requested from last year's and previous year's conferences to have some kind of overview of like how does ZFS work just kind of in general so that people can better understand some of the later talks in the day. Then after lunch, we have broken into 3 sections. Each section is kind of anchored by a longer talk, and then a few talks, a few 15-minute talks surrounding that. So first we have a talk about parity declustered RAID and how that applies to ZFS. Then after a break, we're going to have several talks about the ARC, which is a ZFS caching mechanism, kicking off with George Wilson, who's going to give an overview of how the ARC works and some enhancements that he's made to it. And then after the last break, we have several quick talks about new features, including the write-back cache from Alex Eisman. And then last, but certainly not least, the beer bash and dinner here on site. OK, so now moving into the second part of my talk, now metadata about the OpenZFS project. So why did we form OpenZFS? We have these 3 bullet points on our website: raise awareness, facilitate open communication, and consistent experience across platforms. I think we can kind of pat ourselves on the back for the first 2 points. We've been to a lot of conferences. We have a lot of communication. On the last point, consistency across platforms, things have been a little bit more mixed. So I wanted to talk briefly about the state of the world today, and then we have an announcement. So currently, we all started from the same code base from Sun Microsystems, from OpenSolaris, and that morphed into Illumos, which maintains OpenZFS today. And today, a lot of changes are happening in all of these different platforms in their separate code repositories. And changes tend to flow only in one direction. So people are pulling their changes from Illumos down to Linux and FreeBSD, from there to macOS. But there's a lot of active development going on in these, in Linux, FreeBSD, and macOS that rarely gets upstreamed and therefore shared with the other platforms. So we've been talking about, I've been talking about this for a long time of like making it easier to share code between different repositories. And today, we have an announcement that will actually make it hopefully a little bit easier to do that. So we created a new open source code repository called OpenZFS repo. Right now, it's basically just a clone of Illumos. The main difference between OpenZFS and Illumos is procedural rather than code base. So it's on GitHub. You can submit your pull requests on GitHub. If you've already tested your change on FreeBSD or Linux or OS X, there's no requirement to do additional building and testing on Illumos because we have automated regression tests that will automatically pull your pull request onto a build machine, do the build, run all the regression tests, and then tell you if they passed. And then if everything passes, you get your code reviewed, then we'll merge your pull request. So the new state of the world that we envision is that OpenZFS will be able to accept changes from all of the different platforms, and then all of the platforms will be able to pull their version of ZFS from OpenZFS. So this is kind of what you will need to do. So if you have already shipped first step is like ship your changes in ZFS on Linux or some other platform, or some not proprietary, but some product, like for example, Delphix OS, Nexenta. Basically, the point here is that this is for changes that have already been thoroughly tested. It's not really intended for like, oh, I want to make a change in ZFS. Let me pull down OpenZFS and then make the change directly there. More likely you would be making a change on a particular platform first, and then just porting that change to OpenZFS so that it can be shared with the broader community. Still open to Illumos bug. The reason for this is that we want to make it really easy for us, the OpenZFS maintainers, to move the changes from OpenZFS repo into Illumos. open the pull request, as I said, respond to any review feedback, and then that's it. All the rest of these steps will happen automatically for you. We will commit the changes to OpenZFS. We'll push them into Illumos. We'll pull changes from Illumos. So who is we? Today, the we is basically me and Prakash. Raise your hand. Prakash down here. So all of this stuff that I'm talking about, Prakash did like over the past 72 hours. So thank you very much for spending your weekend on this. But we are definitely looking for more folks to help with this, and I'll get to that later. But first, systems demo, which will be very interesting because it's just a bunch of web pages. So this is the GitHub repo. There's 2 projects. This is the OpenZFS source code repository. I even wrote a description that actually tells you what it is. Talks about how to contribute changes. We have pull requests. These pull requests have been integrated. All of the builds, all of the infrastructure to perform these builds is running through, it uses Jenkins and Ansible. It uses OmniOS to do the builds. All this infrastructure is also open source. It's in the repo there. And we have some requests for how to improve this coming in a moment. So you'll be able to see your test results in this public Jenkins instance. This shows the different jobs. This is the main job. So you run the regression tests. It creates a build server. It does the build. It creates another virtual machine to run the tests. It shows you the test results. So here's your nightly output, all the build stuff. You could also use this to directly do an RTI into Illumos. So take this and RTI your changes directly into Illumos by passing OpenZFS if you wanted to. So for example, like if you are just doing some Illumos changes that aren't related to ZFS, you're certainly welcome to use this infrastructure as well. Shows you test results. Here's all your Z-test runs. And then here's test results from a ZFS test suite run. Hey, I didn't have to use my canned things. OK. So all this stuff is running on Delphix equipment today. That wasn't really our goal. Ideally, we would like to move this all to be running on some cloud provider. We tried to get it working on AWS, and we got OmniOS running, but then when we were able to do the build, but then when we actually rebooted onto those bits, it turns out it doesn't quite, the Illumos gate master doesn't quite work on AWS, so we need to debug that, but it's hard to debug because there's no console access on AWS. So we would love for someone to help us out with this. There's other things that we need help with, like for example, the test results are at this IP address, or Prakash's personal DNS entry, because the open-zfs.org website and mailing list are kind of, they're on borrowed time. The current company that's hosting that, unfortunately, doesn't have the personnel resources to continue enhancing it. So we would love to have a volunteer who understands how things like web pages and mailing lists and DNS, those kinds of things work, because I have no idea how any of that stuff works. Somebody who understands how that stuff works and can maintain it for at least a few years would be really great, so that we can move the mailing list and all this other infrastructure to somewhere that will have a future home. That is the end of the keynote. How did I do on time? Oh, yes, I'm setting a great example. Exactly 15 minutes. I will say that I have time for 2 questions before I introduce the next speaker. Any questions? Yes. So that won't be automated. It might be at some point in the future, but for now, we will go through the normal Illumos processes of RTIing those changes. The goal is that we would have already fulfilled all of the Illumos criteria, so there would already be builds, there would already have been code review. So that should be a very simple process. Like we would just file the RTI. We wouldn't like ask for any additional code review. We'd just be like, here's the RTI. It would show up in Illumos gate like the same as any other commits. know, but if you can put us in touch with someone from there, maybe they can help us out. That would be great. Yeah. Cool. So thank you very much. Next